C.S. Lewis and John Lennox, titans of the Christian faith, men who shared the gospel with millions and spoke against the most prominent atheists of their respective generations. Born in different centuries, yet united by a hunger for evangelism and a zeal for apologetic truth. Yet what many don't realize is that these two men briefly overlapped during John Lennox's time as a student at Cambridge University in the 60s. This is a story of one of their encounters as told by John Lennox himself in a personal message given to me for my daughter. I share it with John's permission.
Written in historical records, documented in Tacitus and Josephus. For those who don't believe us, check the marks of architecture written on a fetus. Neural nets and error correcting codes complete us.
Chaos theory.
Reality.
I understand that you're interested in C.S. Lewis. Now, as you see, I'm quite an old man, and I'm old enough to have seen C.S. Lewis actually in Cambridge in 1962. He was giving his last lectures in the English faculty, and I had lectures across the road, and on several occasions I went to hear him because I'd heard of him. And it was wonderful because the place was packed. He was a legend in his own time, and it was a very cold winter, and he's a big chap like me. And in this winter, he would burst through the double doors with a big heavy coat on and a long scarf and a hat. But he'd start lecturing the moment he came through the door. And he would pick his way among the students who were all over the floor and sitting in the window seats and so on. And he was lecturing as he took off his coat, unwound his scarf, and finally took off his hat and put it behind the podium, so that when he got there, he'd already delivered a brilliant 5 minutes of a lecture. The lecture went on for nearly 50 minutes, and then the funny thing was that he reversed the process. He kept lecturing as he put on his hat, wound up his scarf, put on his coat as he walked towards the door, and his last words were spoken as he burst out through the doors. There was no time for questions and answers. So that's my memory of C.S. Lewis, and I reenact it in my film Against the Tide, which you can stream. It's lovely to hear that you're interested in Lewis, and I wish you every blessing for whatever you do.
So the story behind that clip is that I had met John Lennox at a conference in Europe, and I actually got to spend about a week with him there. And I had asked him if he would do me a favor because my eldest daughter, she had read through the Narnia books. She was well aware of C.S. Lewis and a fan, and she had also just begun reading a book by John Lennox. I asked him, would you be willing to record your recollections of meeting C.S. Lewis as a personal message for my daughter? And so I thought, this is going to blow her mind when I bring it back to her. And so John, being the gracious and kind man that he is, he agreed to that. And so that is the story, the origin story for that clip. And I must say, if you've ever heard John speak, he is a natural storyteller. So some of my favorite memories from that conference are just sitting around the campfire, listening to him tell stories about what he did throughout his life, when he would go places like the former Soviet Union and speak about the existence of God and evangelize. And one of the stories that he shared was pretty cool that particularly affected me was he was telling of a time where he was on a train and he felt that the Holy Spirit was moving him to speak to a man and to give that man the Bible that he had with him. And he thought, is this really from God? I think we all think that when we're being led to do something. And so eventually he went to the man and he said, I know this may be a little bit weird, but I feel like I really am meant to give you this Bible. And he said that the man's countenance changed. And this man told him that his church had lost their only copy of the scriptures and that they had been praying that they would find another. And so here John was being used by the Holy Spirit in order to answer the prayers of this church. And I also must mention that John Lennox reenacts this scene of the story that he's telling about in his movie Against the Tide with Kevin Sorbo. I'll go ahead and I'll put a link in the description to where you can purchase it or stream it, but you should definitely check it out. And thank you again, John, for allowing me to share this.
Chaos theory.